So, in the strange year that 2022 is, we're getting a reprisal of the biannual charity event of Comic Relief this year. But that made me think, we've had shows in the past take part in the event, and Doctor Who has, so why don't I go through the times that Who's taken part and see how they are today? Who knows what we might find.
I was sitting in front of the TV set, there was nothing much else to do. Then along came this amazing cow, they called it Doctor Who. It was 6:30 on the ABC, just before the news. No heads to interrupt me on an interspatial cruise.
So, this one's the only classic interaction with the charity, and here we have Colin Baker in costume, in character, talking about the worst enemy on Earth.
Hunger.
But apart from that, it's not actually all that humorous, and it's a bit more serious, which I think is the right tone for this. I mean, sometimes it is good to have a laugh, but other times we have to take things as seriously as we can. So, it's good to see that even as early on as here, they tried to take things as seriously as they could. But before I leave this section, I do have two questions to ask. Who was the singer of the song in the background, and where did he go when he disappeared at the end? Was this the last thing he did before he regenerated? We may never know. The next time we went into the land of Comic Relief, it was during the Wilderness years. The show had been gone for 2 and a bit years, and people were just used to it not being around anymore. Then suddenly, it sort of came back with Rowan Atkinson as the Doctor, Julius Wahala as the Companion, and Jonathan Pryce as the Master. It seems that we're pulling out all the stops, especially for the writer, the world-famous Stephen Moffat. This is more of a parody of a proper classic story, and feels most like the show. Hell, you could put this in season 17, I don't think anybody would bat an eye. Well, I would say that until we find out that he regenerates 4 times in the same story. I mean, to be honest, it's a good show because what Richard E. Grant, Jim Broadbent, Hugh Grant and Joanna Lumley could do with the role if they tried. And nowadays there's a great look to the future with a lot of these performances being copied to each of the future incarnations in the revival. It's a wonderful love letter to Who in just 20 minutes. What more could you want? Oh, this one. Yeah, I'm used to this one. Can we skip it? No? Damn it. Alright, before we start, I have to say that I'm not a fan of the Catherine Tate show. I mean, it's not my thing. Now, why do I have to say this? Well, this one's a sketch between David Tennant and one of the characters from the show, Lauren Cooper, played by Catherine Tate herself. The gist of the sketch is that Lauren thinks Tennant is the Doctor and he tries to deny it. She keeps thinking that he is, and at the end it turns out he is. Straightforward, eh? Should only be about 2 to 3 minute sketch. Try 6 agonising minutes waiting for the not so funny punchline. For 2009's outing of the charity, Doctor Who was off doing specials the year. I don't think Torchwood at that stage would have been good for Comic Relief that year, so they turned to the Sarah Jane Adventures to deliver the goods with a short episode in between series 2 and 3 with the titles From Raxacorical Phalapatorius with Love or Run with the Wind, and I assure you that last title was actually considered by one of the writers of the story. Set entirely in the Sarah Jane Adventures attic, the team are doing a routine checkup before Ronnie Colbert enters the attic unannounced to give them all gifts of dealy boppers, before K9 reveals him to be a member of the Slovene family who is trying to sell K9 and stop the Bellman Monroe gang. With a bit of ingenuity, the team saved themselves from him and sent him packing beyond the stars. It's very funny and enjoyable tale. It's good to see a recognisable guest star of the late Ronnie Colbert, who does his usual 2 Ronnie routines with some flair. Plus, even the team get involved, so it's a stellar story from all. And as a Slovene fan, I think it's canon. I mean, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Comic Relief 2011 gave us 3 things for Doctor Who in particular. 2 new Doctor Who mini episodes, a fun little live action part after the episodes had ended, and awkward humour for all. Anyways, in all seriousness, it actually brought us the first new Doctor Who related content for Comic Relief, which is quite weird because, as we know, the others were either spin-offs or material of the actors. Still, this must mean that we have a big old series tale of death, right? Nope, it's more of a comedic tale between the Doctor, Amy and Rory, where Rory's helping the Doctor with the TARDIS, messes it up, and then we have a time and space loop, where other versions of Amy, Rory and the Doctor help the originals and they become the de facto versions. But then we find out the whole reason behind this is because of Amy's skirt. Just imagine if Moff had a day off and started writing coupling again. But then something weird happened. The Doctor decided to quickly visit on Comic Relief to see Jonathan Ross and Claudia Winkleman to tell them all about the future. And you know when I said there was awkward humour for all? Yeah, this is the awkward part of the humour. But don't worry, at least it's not Miranda trying to get the Doctor. At least it's not that, right? She's not going to come back. She's not going to be involved in this, right? And we're back. 2 years later, it was time for comic relief. Who was celebrating its 50th anniversary, and we got a crossover sketch between the show's One Born Every Minute, called The Midwife, and Doctor Who. I mean, it makes sense, kind of. To be honest, I've never seen One Born Every Minute, and what I can tell from the sketches, it's a documentary on hospital births, right? And called The Midwife because it just wasn't my thing, although Miranda Hart keeps reminding me of the nightmare of her own show. They start referencing other shows, I start losing my mind, and finally the Doctor comes in. On a terrible green screen. Check, please. Oh, and the Doctor appears as just him appearing, Claudia returning from the dark. And I guess the only good thing here is Dermot, because it just reminds me of the funny sketch Eleven did with him in 2011, which was much more entertaining than this. Weirdly, after Capaldi took on the role of the Doctor, he didn't do that much comedy. I mean, it made sense in 2015 because at that point his Doctor was more serious, with the comedy flowing out from the serious moments in Series 8. So, it makes sense they wouldn't do anything for 2015. Same for 2017, because I guess they didn't want to risk it with it being his last year at the point. Anyways, out comes 2019 and Jodie's making her appearance. But instead of a sketch or a new short, it was going back to the original, as she's slightly in character, / herself, asks people to donate to comic relief. It's fun, it's short, and it's just like Baker's version, so there's not really much to say or add this time around. Except, who is she talking to when she's turning around to look at the camera? And finally we come to last year's offering. Now, as you all know, how do I say this? We were in a pandemic for these last 2 years, so things have been tough and harder on all of us. So with 2021 following the harrowing year of 2020, I guess the only thing to do was to look back on the previous year of the humour that we'd been missing previously. Anyway, something sweet and short we got, as the Doctor Who parts this time around were just Jodie and Mandup's cameos, as their Doctors, with Jodie being the central Doctor, making sure we remind ourselves about the clapping for carers that happened during 2020, and they leave us Sonic in hand and ready to battle against the terrors of 2020. As said, short but sweet. Kinda wish John Bishop was there with them, but beggars can't be choosers, of course. In conclusion, Doctor Who's had a nice time involved with comic relief. It hasn't been there since the beginning, or every event, but it's been there where it can be, which is fine. And hey, through it all, we've seen through the good and bad that it can offer. From family appeals to Dalek breasts to Double Trouble to meta commentary, it's got it all. Make sure you watch it this year, Friday, March the 18th, and if you can, please donate to help out, or even just watch it. Whatever you're doing will really help. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all later. Before K9 reveals himself. K9 is a Slovene, confirmed. Didn't know that.